So I'm going to explain to you the concept of sampling and recording rules in behavioral observations. This is a method that is used in naturalistic observation studies. I'm doing this based on my notes in naturalistic methods of psychology at George Mason University. It's a concept that is a little bit complex but is easy once you figure it out, and I thought it would be nice to share it with all of you. The notes that I'm using to make this video come from chapter 8 of Pellegrini. That is where I learned the information and then I organized it into my own notes. So let's start with a few basic terms. Frequency, which is a measure of occurrence. Duration is a measure of how long something is occurring. A pattern, which is a measure of trends that can pertain to a specific category during a time period. Latency, which is how long someone that is being observed is exposed to something that elicits a behavior. And then intensity, the degree to which an observed behavior is occurring. You also need to know what event and state behaviors are. An event behavior is occurring whenever you have a low duration of an observation, and a state behavior is whenever you have a high duration of an observation. If you have a frequency that is high and a duration that is low, then you have what is called frequent momentous. If you have a frequency that is low and a low duration, it is infrequent momentous. And those are both categorized as event behaviors. And then we have state behaviors. If a frequency is high and the duration is also high, you have frequent long lasting. If you have a frequency that is low and a duration that is high, then it is infrequent long lasting. In measuring behavior, it's important to keep in mind not only who you are sampling, but also how and what. This brings us to the two major rules in behavioral observational research, which is the point of this video: sampling rules and recording rules. Sampling, you are going to systematically decide who you are going to observe, meaning you are going to infer about a population based on the subset of individuals you observe that represent the larger population. Recording rules are how you are going to conduct the observation. And I'll get into this later, but you should keep in mind that certain rules go with one another across sampling and recording. So let's start with our sampling rules. We have ad libitum, which are your preliminary observations that give the researcher context. You're coding for the most obvious things that stand out to you. The limitation with this observation is that it's not systematic. You are indeed only seeing what's being seen by almost everybody else, and that leaves room for observer bias. We then have focal. This is observing one specific individual for a certain amount of time. You are going to code everything that you see them doing and everyone that they are interacting with. This is great for comprehensive observation. The limitation for this method, though, is that it's really expensive and time-consuming. Scan, which is looking for details of everyone that is in a group during a short amount of time. This is interval-based, meaning you're going to use time sampling, which I will explain later. You should be mindful that your scores are likely not independent of one another because you're observing a specific group of individuals in a short amount of time. Finally, we have event behavior. This is coding a specific infrequent behavior. You want to code how the behavior unfolds from start to finish. When the behavior changes, you actually stop coding for it and you move to the new behavior. It may be helpful in understanding why the behavior is occurring. So those are our sampling rules. Now we have recording rules. We have continuous, instantaneous, and 0-1. Instantaneous and 0-1 are your time sampling recording rules. But let's go back and we'll start with continuous. Continuous recording is examining the duration of both the target event and the observation. This is where you can measure the terms I mentioned at the beginning of this video: frequency, duration, patterns, latency, and intensity, if the entire behavior is observed during the observation. We then have our two time samplings, which are also known as snapshot recording. We have instantaneous. You have to have a timer for this, and you're recording whether or not a target behavior occurred as soon as the timer goes off. This is great for measuring intensity, and it's great to use with scan sampling. 0-1 recording is observing the presence or absence of a behavior and or its intensity within a specified interval. So you have an interval of 10, 20 seconds. And if you're coding for aggression, then you're just going to record whether it occurred or did not occur. There are things to keep in mind with time sampling. Your ad libitum, your research questions, past research, you need to have an idea of what all of those are. You need to have already done some of your preliminary analysis. You should note that a short duration is closer to real time, but too short means you could miss a part of the behavior. So intervals should be longer than the behavior. This is to make sure you catch the entire behavior that you are looking for. But if you have too long of a duration, then you may get too many behaviors. Finally, if your interval is short enough, then your two time sampling methods should give you the same result, meaning your instantaneous recording results and your 0-1 recording results should give you the same thing. So let's bring all of this full circle. Think back to the event and state behaviors mentioned earlier. When you are time sampling, meaning you are using instantaneous recording or 0-1 recording, you are referring to events. So when you are observing a group while time sampling, you are scan sampling. When you are observing an individual during time sampling, you are focal sampling. When you are using continuous recording, you are referring to state behaviors. So when you are observing a group continuously, you are scan sampling. And finally, when you are observing an individual continuously, you are focal sampling. This just leaves you with ad libitum, which is merely, again, your preliminary observations. I hope this video was helpful. Feel free to leave a comment, like, dislike, and thanks for watching.